the meeting to order on May 21st at 6 p.m. First item is to set and adjust the agenda. Any changes? I think it's all there. Great. Next item is communication from the audience. Is anyone here to discuss something that is not on the agenda?
Please introduce yourself.
Oh, we've got so many hands. Hi, Danny. Welcome.
No, I'll go last. I can catch my breath.
So just as a refresher, if you just state your name for the minutes, that would be great.
Yes, I'm Amy Rosenthal, and I am a member and chair of the Equity Committee, and the reason I'm here is in light of the conversation that happened the other night at the meeting. I wanted to let the select board know that while they're considering the further study and the task force around what the upcoming configuration will be for select board, because the issue of equity came up several times in the conversation on Tuesday night, that being an equity issue, that I'm here to kind of say we would offer our services to the select board as a way perhaps to coordinated help that effort and come up with a proposal for the select board and the community in the fall.
Great. Thanks, Amy. I know we had, I think in old business, I was going to talk about, or old/new business, I was going to talk a little bit more about what we heard at the special town meeting on Tuesday. And we heard loud and clear that we will be creating a task force at some point, so it's helpful to know that. Does board members have any questions for Amy or thoughts while we're
Thank you.
I think it's a perfect place for the equity committee to weigh in. So thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Thanks, Amy.
Go ahead.
Good evening, my name is Robert Garrish, I'm from Lindenville. I'm just here to introduce myself. I'm running for sheriff for the upcoming August election. So I'm just going to all the select board meetings across the county to listen to what all the needs and concerns of the communities are. I've been in law enforcement since 2014 in Vermont. I take it pretty seriously. I think it's a calling. And I'm just here to listen. Thank you so much for letting me attend your meeting.
Thanks for being here and going to all the towns. It's appreciated. Sir.
Danny Hale. First issue.
You only get one per
I
meeting.
wouldn't be here in person if I didn't have to be. And I know that we talked about improving our online capabilities here for a long time. There's no reason we can't in this room. You can move it, do whatever, but I think the town has an obligation, if we're going to have people participating online, we need to provide an adequate. I mean, 2 weeks from now, I can watch this meeting on HCTV, and the sound that they produce is fine. So it's not the room, it's our equipment. I'm not sure what's going on. But secondly, recently I went and visited my grandparents' grave. Hadn't been there in years. I had a family member. I had always taken care of it, and I assumed she still was, and she wasn't. And I was disappointed myself for not being there sooner. It's very close to my house, so I don't go up around the cemetery to see it. I can see it from my land. Very disappointed in the shape of our cemeteries, and when I say that, it's not about the sexton, and it's not about the work that he's doing, it's about myself and the citizens of Hardwick not taking care of the cemeteries in the manner we should be taking care of the cemeteries. We spend an exorbitant amount of money on things in this town that are important, but I don't believe that forgetting about our cemeteries is not just as important as those things. So, I'm here to forewarn you that in town meeting we'll be voting on starting a cemetery commission with 5 commissioners. By then I'll definitely have 5 candidates that are willing to do it. I think it's important that we get something in place other than the select board. And one of my pet peeves that I always had on the select board were all these miscellaneous duties that they get thrown to be responsible for, and they become the burden of the select board when it really, honestly, could be spread throughout the community and give other people opportunities to serve. I'm quite confident that once I start shaking the tree and we figure out how to let more people know that the shape of our cemeteries are the way they are, that we can get some volunteerism and some fundraising going. And I mean, in today's world, there's absolutely no reason that we can't fund our cemeteries in an appropriate manner. And again, it's not about, I mean, they look beautiful today. I mean, the crew that comes in and mows them is fine. We should be paying someone to put together a plan and maintenance our cemeteries. That should be somebody from Hardwick. There should be some buy-in from the village, so, and from the town. When I say the village, I mean the town. So that's what I'm up to there. What do I need to seek from permission from you guys tonight, right now, to start moving forward with some projects that I can get volunteers and donations? Do I just talk to Opie, and do I need to get them approved through you, or what's gonna? Because I've got some things I'm gonna start working on right now that are, I mean, like there's one old fence up in the South Main Street, and it's a random piece of fence that doesn't, you know, it looked, yeah, I'm sure it was beautiful when it was built in 1973. But right now, it looked better if it was just gone. The maintenance of the roads is horrific. I plan on getting some volunteers, some donations, and we can take care of that. That'll be just this year to get going, but in the future, we need to plan on spending more money on our cemeteries. So be ready. Third thing is,
Third, he said two.
Danny, do you want us to respond to each thing individually, or do you want to wait?
Oh.
You want to get it all out and then have us, because I had some questions about the cemeteries, but do you want me to wait?
oh no, we'll do it that way. You're in charge? Maybe not.
No, I just wanted.
I'm in a blue chair now.
I'm
Although I notice mine's empty.
I didn't want to cut you off. So for the
We're
cemeteries,
10 now.
well, so for the cemeteries, just so you wait. So this has come up a lot,
Yeah.
because we now have
Yeah,
a lot
yeah.
more cemeteries than we did.
Yep.
They're all in various stages of, we just kind of acquired the one in Sanborn
Yeah.
a couple years ago. You're
I
not
read
the,
policy, and I was just 24, so we just did
yeah,
that.
you're not the only one. And in 24, we talked about, there's certainly there are like kind of bigger projects for each one. It'd be great to have a plan, I think. And it would be
Right.
awesome to have volunteers help out. I think it could be something that maybe the school could be involved with potentially, like getting people to take care of their cemeteries is a wonderful thing for the community
Yeah.
to do. So I know we have a list of some things that we want to be doing for each.
We do. We have a list of stuff that needs to be done at the cemeteries. We have a capital fund and we have perpetual funds that we need to be mindful of the statutory requirements of how we spend it. But we have the available funding for these projects.
So maybe
it's
it makes
not-
sense.
Nothing that I saw, and I'm, quick review, was a lot of it is
Right.
maintenance is long overdue. That, when someone's been dead 175 years, it's hard for them to take care of their grave.
Sure is.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and it's honestly, it's hard for their relatives, and, there's some people at the graves, they get forgotten pretty easily.
I think,
And I'm certainly not happy with myself as a select board member that we kind of blew it off in 24 and made a new policy and didn't deal with the problem there. But I'll help with a solution on this one.
well, it's easy to forget too, because a lot of our cemeteries, you can see parts from the road, but a lot you
Yeah.
can't. So unless you're going back there, you don't really know.
So the
So-
only thing I really didn't know is that I'm probably just with Opie talked about, I
Yep.
meet with Joe, because I believe he is doing a plan anyway, and so this survey is not about him doing a bad job. He's doing probably more than we're paying for right now.
Yep.
So.
But having I think a great first step would be to do that, Danny, and then come up with a little bit of
By
a
town meeting,
plan.
so in order to get a commission, we have to have a town vote, so we're doing a town meeting. So there's no rush there, but we can still.
The commission already exists and the select board is appointed to that commission. So I think all you need is new commissioners.
Well, it says the term expires 2026.
Yeah, we basically,
That's-
we
it's
just
a
stand
1
back
year.
up. Right, you're absolutely right, Ruth.
Yeah.
We had our policy, we put in the procedures.
So
and-
that's this year, not next year.
It's not a big deal, it just.
In
No,
July.
it's
We
important.
must have voted, we didn't vote on the select board taking them over, we just took them over, because we had to.
Right.
Yeah.
But we have to vote, it says, for a
This,
commission.
next
Well, thanks for keeping it on our radar, because it's easy for it to not,
Oh, it's gonna be on
easy
the
to drop
radar.
it. So I think that sounds like a good first step.
We did it again.
Danny, does anybody else have, feel like that's a, it seems like a good,
I think it's a great idea.
I do too.
So the last thing is the Gazette building. I don't know what the plans are 100%, but I do know that we bought a lot of properties, taken on a lot of liabilities, and lost a lot of tax revenue through this flood, this FEMA things. And I don't think that should be, I think that we need you guys, need to get on making sure that that property is not bought out by FEMA, it is owned by the town of Hardwick and can be used for a resource other than a green space. I mean, that is there, you have one opportunity to improve Main Street of Hardwick, and that's with the Gazette building and the Peace Park. Green spaces are beautiful, we got plenty of green spaces. There's a whole bunch of green spaces down on Walker Street now that I see someone is out on with a truck and tore up already, so now we've got to go down and fix that. People don't understand that these things come, these properties come with responsibilities and liabilities. They're going to cost us money down the line. They're not free. So don't let Main Street be lost to the green space. Figure it out, buy it out, get the 200 grand back from the old barn, put it on Main Street, you know what I mean? Figure it out.
yeah.
And it's gonna happen fast, because the FEMA machine will eat you up.
Can I, just as a counterpoint to that, if we as a town acquire that building, would that not be also a liability that we have to maintain? A huge liability.
Well, Tim, unfortunately, just barely lost a whole lot of faith in your thinking.
I mean,
That
it's,
doesn't make no sense at all.
Well-
Where's the real estate on Main Street?
well, but do you know how much that building needs to actually maintain it?
I'm talking parking lot, I'm not talking Gazette building. I'm
Oh,
talking 6
I thought-
parking spots for the trail.
okay, yeah, I'm into that.
Okay, yeah, I thought you
had
were,
to save the Gazette
No,
building and like
we're
have
not
the town own the
no,
building.
No.
That's what I heard.
But
I
your
would have
point,
saved it 25 years ago.
yeah, no, well, that's long
your
past.
point, Danny, is to not go quickly to a buyout and to think about the other possibilities with that
Well,
property.
it's not our building.
Correct. But we can have
So,
that conversation.
And then someone's gonna be looking to get a buyout, and
I think that was already, correct me if I'm wrong, is that not already a done?
I don't think it's a
No,
done
it's not a
deal,
done
but
deal
I,
until
well,
it's done deal.
if it
I think
happens,
it's a-
it'll be another really huge missed bad decision, whatever we call it.
Yeah, if FEMA gets it, then we cannot do anything
As
to
much
that.
and as long as we.
Land.
heard
You
about-
couldn't even put parking
You
spaces
can't
there?
put parking
You
on.
can't do nothing. You lose, the only thing you do is
No, it
pay for it
becomes
the rest of
green
your
space.
Okay.
your eternity. When there's a problem, you pay for it.
Well, I misunderstood you, Danny. Give me a little credit.
It's an expense for eternity. It never becomes a revenue.
Right,
source.
right.
It's a liability.
So I think that's a great point. That's a great question.
These properties aren't good properties. That's why the people were, they were bought out.
Sure.
Because they were an issue, there was an issue there that
right.
cost them money. And that's an important one there. I mean, green space is great, and we can move the Peace Park, we can do all these things, but, and you know what? We should be thinking about buying Mike's Golf, because those two guys aren't going to be turning wrenches for another 40 years, and there aren't many mechanics that are going to move in there. And it's going to end up just like Richards, which is another opportunity, next to the bank, which was another opportunity. So the town of Hardwick needs to start, everyone sits in these meetings and talks about how we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it, and nobody's doing it. Nobody. It's going the opposite direction. We are shutting this town down to grow, and if someone does, and you know, I gave up trying up there, and I hope I do better over here, because it's really, it's getting difficult for a guy like me who was born one street up, 63 years ago, to live here and to function here. So,
Well, I appreciate that, Danny, and I think, we're gonna be having a select board retreat in June. We're gonna change the date tonight, but that's a big part of that at least for me, is gonna be talking about affordability in Hardwick and how we need to shift, because we've heard that loud and clear from everybody, and
Well,
I
I give
think,
you a good one right here, we can shift tonight, and start figuring out how not to lose what little bit of real estate we have on Main Street.
so I think,
Start thinking about it.
I think it's a great idea to think about other ways of potentially using that space. That would be a conversation, I think, to have with Kristen at some point. I know Kristen is here, not right now, but a conversation with Kristen, and then a conversation with the actual owners of the building. So, but it's not, yeah, I mean, it's a pretty prime part of downtown, that lot. So thank you for bringing that up. We won't forget about it.
Good.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, these are all good. These are all good things.
You should be.
Can I go back to T-ball now?
Yeah. No, stick around, stick around.
No, I got T-ball. No, I'm not sitting here.
Thanks,
I
Danny.
figured he would be better at baseball by now. Still
Great.
playing.
Is there any other,
Yeah, never
thanks,
mind.
Danny. Is there any other communication from the audience for somebody who's, I know we had a couple of folks come in. Joe, I assume you're here for something for later on, so, perfect. Great. So the next, we have select board to approve the minutes of the regular select board meeting of May 7th, and the minutes of the informational meeting of May 7th, and the minutes of the special select board meeting of May 13th. 3 sets of minutes.
I would move to approve them all. Can we do them at once?
Yes, you can.
Second.
Any discussion? I thought they looked really good. Yeah, nothing else? Okay.
No, they
All
all
those
look
in
good.
favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Great, the ayes have it. Thanks again for doing those minutes, Amanda and Casey. Next, we have the town manager's report given by David Upson.
Okay, so, you guys have heard of the MERP, the Municipal Energy Resiliency Program. I think it's been around so long, I forgot the acronym, but the insulating company, NEK Comfort, is gonna be starting at the townhouse next week. Once he starts there, he'll move to, this building and then the public safety building. And that's to suck out all the old insulation and to pump in new insulation. This was a state grant from 2024, I believe, to improve our energy recovery with fossil fuels. So there's other, or reduction in fossil fuels. There's other parts of this grant to include lighting, heat pumps, which we're kind of holding steady on the heat pump installations right now until we get the installation done and see how much we have left over. So that's exciting. That'll be started next week. There'll be a dumpster over at the townhouse for a couple weeks, and there'll be people working up in the attic. Been working with, I've had a few meetings with our project manager consultant that we hired, and we met with the engineers for the bridges and the slope stabilization project. And he's communicating directly with them on the scope of work changes and permitting and final designs in order to get those projects switched over from A&E projects, architectural and engineering projects, to construction projects with FEMA. So that's going well, and those projects will be moving forward. Also on the FEMA realm, we're still meeting with them bi-weekly on the fire department and the wastewater treatment facility. There's not too many more updates from last time, just that we have to get the RFP out to get an engineer to do a final design or construction drawings for a wastewater facility. What we're struggling with now is, are we asking an engineer to design a facility that's in place and with, raised up, or are we asking them to design a facility that's relocated? And that's a big question, and how we navigate that, because we don't want to waste time and money with those designs. We had an update correspondence from all three, Becca Balance office, Bernie Sanders' office, and Peter Welch's office, that they are going to support the congressionally directed spending applications that we put in for Hardwick Rescue. Bernie's office did not say an amount. Peter Welch's office was 1.3 million, and Becca Balance was 800,000. And that will go to, it's past a certain point in the House and Senate appropriations, but it needs, obviously, it goes along past the federal budget, so there's a lot more hoops to jump through there. So, but that's money directed towards the rescue facility on the Creamery Road complex, the redevelopment.
It's still a big deal.
Yeah, it
That's
is.
great.
There's a long ways to go there to actually have that money to spend on the project. We had partnered with Heartbeat Life Sharing for a grant 2 years ago. I believe it was in 2024. We had a public hearing. It was through ACCD. They are withdrawing that application, so that is one more grant that we are not having to administer, and we had some legal fees associated with that, which we will recover directly from Heartbeat. So that was something that we were working on this week. And I think just an update on the bridge and wall project on Main Street. Project is still on schedule, going well. They're drilling the micropiles, and there was a small redesign in the location of 3 of the piles due to the coordination to tie it into the existing wall. So that was just a small problem we had to reevaluate, but that's been worked out. And their coffer dam that they installed held well with I think they got 1.9 inches of rain, so 2 inches of rain roughly, and it worked out, and the water stayed below it, and everything is still going smoothly there. And if you've seen, they have the north abutment done,
Yeah.
and they're starting to backfill that.
They're making pretty quick, I mean, I think they're
Yep.
making good progress.
Yep, it's going well. I think that's it for now.
I had a quick question about, and maybe it doesn't really matter, but traffic flow for Springfest. If that is changing at all due to the construction, or we're just doing the same thing?
Same thing,
Okay.
same route.
So the parade is the same route, and then the street fair is not happening on the street, it's happening behind the Legion.
Okay.
All the way up in front of your house.
Not exactly, but Brush Street and Highland there and behind the Legion, so that stays open for traffic.
Great.
But it's bigger than this year.
So there'll be traffic control like usual.
Yeah.
The roads will be shut down.
Yeah.
When the roads are reopened after the parade, there will be a controlled reopening, and we will direct vehicles to follow the traffic lights through town. We'll have the side streets still somewhat closed, and we're rerouting traffic in a controlled way. Spring Street's going to be closed after the parade for about an hour, hour and a half while they do the Cubmobile races. And the fire department is helping with some of the traffic control along with the police department.
There'll be some kind of a sign at the end of Highland, so the people that are trying to cut through have to go up to Church Street instead of turning on Highland, because they won't be able to
Right.
get out. Right.
Should be no,
It'll be a
was it?
local traffic only or something, yeah.
Sorry.
Great.
I had a question about the wastewater plant.
Okay.
What, do we need to do anything to kind of decide on that, the plan on whether to move it, or, I guess what's the process for making that determination?
Yeah, so at this point right now, we have obligated, well, it's still not obligated, it's in like EHP, they call it, which is Environmental and Historic Preservation, within FEMA. Once it's obligated, that 8.2 million, then we can start with the design of the project. And as we develop the cost estimate for the project, what that project may be, whether it's an elevated plant, whether it's, currently, right now, we have to design an elevated facility in place. Same form and function, same capacity, basically an in-kind replacement of the facility. And as we do that and develop a new cost estimate and design the facility based on their current codes and standards, we can then start to have the conversation of, well, this isn't gonna work, or this is gonna cost us another, 300,000, so we go back to FEMA and get a different amount and reobligate a different amount. When we start to have the conversation of moving the facility, I'm not entirely sure yet.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
And then, in the meantime, while we're doing this, we're looking for other funding to stack on top of the 8.2 million to be able to fund something outside of the scope of the FEMA work.
Sure, okay.
Whether that's USDA or EDA, we're having those conversations.
Or what was the other one?
EDA,
What is that?
Economic Development Administration.
Oh, okay.
Another federal agency
Excellent.
that's tied to jobs and
Economic
job
development.
creation and job retention.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yep.
Thank you.
It's clear as mud at this point still.
Or untreated waste.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Any more questions for the town manager? Great, thanks so much, thanks so much to you and to everybody else on the team, doing a lot. Next, we've got the Hardwick Police Department report given by Mike Henry. Mike?
I'll start off with the biggest thorn in my side, which is our radio systems. They were supposed to be completed. They guaranteed it a couple weeks ago. They came down, NEK broadband and put in the fiber that was needed. Hardwick Communications showed up. They started doing their work. Apparently the fiber is not wired correctly the way they need it. So we're waiting on NEK broadband to come back, fix that. Then Hardwick Communications is going to come back and hopefully have two sites out, the one at our office and the one on West Hill, hopefully. And then we're still going to be working on the one in Greensboro to try and get that coverage. So we may have that sometime in June at this point. That's been pushed off again. The other thing, so I ordered one of the new radar signs that's going to be solar. We're going to be putting that up in East Hardwick on Church Street. I think we got plenty of light up there. We're going to keep that going up there. East Hardwick. We try to always maintain one portable sign up there, but it's a battery operated sign that goes down quite a bit. We'll try and move it around. I'll put in a grant for next year. I'm going to put in a grant for 2 more portable signs that we can move around. But at this point, we're going to get that one sign. Hopefully, that'll be in, within the next month or two.
And that's a permanent sign?
That's a permanent sign that we're going to put up there on Church Street. So looking at grant stuff for next year already, the state's going to mandate that we go to these e-tickets, which you have to do in your car. In order to do that, you've got to have self-service, everything else. So we're working on a plan for that right now. There is grant money that I could start getting mobile data terminals put into the cars. We're trying to find something small because we've had them in the past and they take up too much room in the car. That's kind of a pain. So we're going to work on a grant to try and get money to buy that stuff and get the cars outfitted for that in the future. We're looking at 2028, trying to implement that, and definitely by 2030, it has to be done by every department. So again, working on more grants for that.
How is every department in Vermont doing that when they don't have, when there isn't actual, it's another mandate that can't be?
We might have to go to something like Starlink for that. We'll have to figure that out.
They don't tend to think practically.
No.
And how does that work for the person getting the ticket? They get emailed?
No.
Or they?
The tickets will go
We'll have a
up.
printer right in the
I
car.
see.
So you
Okay,
gotta have a
right.
printer, you're gonna have the, they did it before, and I'm sure other people have done it.
I've used them.
Yeah,
They're a pain.
they're paying. They didn't work very well, so.
You end up having to mail the tickets. Since you can't get the printer to work, so you give them, you say, I'll mail you a ticket, and then, so you have to put postage. And-
Do
So you
you,
have
do
to
you,
use triple the amount of paper.
do you think they actually consulted with law enforcement before actually mandating
I
that?
don't know.
Okay. Doubtful.
So
Probably
we'll
won't.
work on a grant, we'll try and get this, it's just something we're gonna be working on and try and get the money for that as well. We've had complaints about early morning traffic, so we've started putting people out there early in the morning, that's the commuter hours. Quite a few complaints about that, so when you start seeing early morning patrols at 5 in the morning, you'll know why. On a good note, next week, next Friday, Ariana will be graduating from the academy. So she'll be done. She'll have one more week after that of post-basic to do. And then we'll start the field training, which is going to be a little bit abbreviated because she started the field training before she went down there. So if anybody's interested in going down to the graduation, that'll be Friday at 10.
Well, congratulations to her. That's a big deal.
That's it.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Any questions?
I don't have any.
Cool. Thanks again. Appreciate you being here. Next, we have item 1, presentation of the Jackson Dam design scope of work and cost estimate given by the Caledonia County Natural Resource Conservation District. Hand it over to you guys. You also have Emily on the call too. I mean, if you want to come sit in the front or stay, you're welcome. It really doesn't matter.
Jessica, do you want us to share the screen with you so you can put the, do you have anything to put on the screen? Or?
Two, but we can let Emily start us off and then I can show the maps.
Okay.
Everybody also has that. Yeah, so I think if you have a copy of the print of it in here too, but we can share it on the screen.
Okay.
Where's the numbers of 15? We haven't heard that.
Yep.
Emily,
Can you hold on one sec?
we also are having a hard time hearing you. To Danny's point earlier, the sound for Zoom users is really not good. So can you hear me okay?
Yes, I've been able to hear you pretty well.
Okay. So for those presenting, if you're on the call, it's easiest if one person talks at a time. As soon as multiple people start talking, it's almost impossible for Zoomers to hear. So just keep that in mind as we have the presentation.
Okay. I can just say apologies for not being there in person. I'm Emily Finnegan. I think I've met most of you from the Caledonia County Natural Resources Conservation District. I am getting over a stomach bug. You would not want me there in person. But I feel well enough to be on the Zoom. So yeah, we had just come, it's just me and Jessica, and I don't know if other folks are there, so I can't see, but today we have sort of like how we envision a 30% design moving forward, and a task list and a potential budget, and then a couple suggestions for how, like if the board wants to keep moving forward, like what I envision as next steps, including sort of like an idea for a steering committee to advise us moving forward. So I'll just let Jessica go for it.
Okay, I am gonna, many of you have in the packet most of the things that I'm gonna be showing, but I figured for anyone joining us online, I'll share the screen. These couple of images are in the packet. We also have some additional copies if anyone else wants one in the room. I guess one thing I should ask you, Chair, do you want any kind of recap from the last meeting or really just focus on our next steps?
I think just focusing on next steps would be great. Thank you, I appreciate it.
So we have done a lot of thinking kind of through our initial look, which we shared with you at the last meeting that we were at. And have come up with a more detailed kind of data collection plan to kind of start out the next steps. We had a meeting with all of the regulators, a few of them, which we haven't been able to get in touch with yet, but that's on the docket for, the next week or so. And we've gotten a lot of feedback on what those different regulators would like to see, to be able to help kind of make decisions, and give guidance and be, kind of in a position to okay a permit or kind of a path forward. So this has been informed by those folks as well. I guess the other thing I would say about that is we got a really very positive reception from those regulators kind of across the board on including how they can be like helpful and involved in the process and making sure that kind of there's check-ins along the way, to kind of make sure we're still on track for permitting process, for a both drawdown that would last not just through the winter but through the summer as well, to help the sediment dry out, to be more workable and have vegetation grow so that it's more stable, and then also kind of moving the path of a removal, which could happen in a future phase. So first step, I'm showing on the screen here, data collection. The idea being that all of those red lines would have a detailed cross-sectional survey, both the top of the sediment and probing down to the bottom of the sediment, with permanent rebar pins put on both sides to be able to kind of go back and reference those and tie in the data at each of those locations to really get a better sense of not only the volume of the sediment, but kind of what the geometry and distribution of that sediment is to help make decisions about what could stay in place and what might need to be removed actively. We also have on here the blue dots, and those are locations where we would do kind of a quality sampling, so taking a soil or sediment sample and having them analyzed for things that might be in there that might dictate like any restraints on where that sediment goes. So, is there, are there heavy metals, are there PCBs, are there PAHs, kind of a general look at what those are. Because it's better to know sooner than later if there would be some kind of restrictions to moving sediment around. We heard from one of the regulators that we should also add asbestos testing to that sediment, because in the region there's been some times where there's been a lot of asbestos show up in areas. So that is currently on the list as well, since that was a regulator suggestion. So this would also allow for additional updates to the hydraulic model as well, as having all this information about the sediment distribution volume. We're also proposing this time a detailed topographic survey of the dam and the bridge and the area around the dam and bridge. It would be able to be used as a basis for design and really understanding the mechanics of the area and, how water is really moving through the dam. At this point, we have very old plans from the 50s that may or may not actually reflect what's going on out there. So we think that, having kind of that detailed survey of this area, early in the process would be really helpful. And I'm going to move into the task list now. So you'll see the maps that I just showed are basically tasks 1.1 and 1.3 and 1.4. We would also be looking at any kind of infrastructure and resource conflicts, including, anything we might need to know about rare endangered species. If there is any hidden infrastructure out there that we might need to know about. As well as looking closer at the geomorphology, which is going to really help to have that detailed conversation with the rivers folks that would be involved in the permitting. We've also included looking at plants and potential invasive species in the area, which would help give the regulators a better idea of kind of what a revegetation might look like if it's done naturally based on the seed bank and kind of what's already located in the area. There've been a lot of drawdown or partial breach scenarios around dams where there's been a large colonization of invasive species. So I think really like thinking about like how likely that might be would be good to know ahead of time. So we could potentially intervene before something got established. So kind of having a better sense of that up front would be a good idea. So that would be kind of the data collection, field recon piece. This is a bigger effort than we have needed to do on previous dams because of the volume and scale and footprint of the dam, but this is comparable but scaled up to other dam removal projects. Then following that would be kind of updating hydraulic analysis as part of the flood study that was done last fall. There was some initial work, but we'll have this updated information. It makes sense to like get that in the model and just check and make sure things are still making sense and we're still seeing the benefits that we initially are expecting. One of the things that came up at the previous meeting was how do we know what is happening with the storage around the dam, and if by taking the dam out we might create kind of a worsened flood situation downstream. So kind of thinking through and using tools and modeling to kind of compare those two scenarios, dam in and dam out with the floodplains, and kind of comparing those two scenarios, which is 3.2, and then kind of putting that information into the 1D model that extends into towns downstream to be able to look at how that potential change in the flood peak might change as it kind of dissipates down the river. This is very similar to the type of work that's done when someone does a dam breach analysis to really understand kind of the danger involved with a potential dam failure. So it's kind of a known type of analysis that we would be recommending here. It does seem like something that we've heard a lot of questions about impacts. And then kind of using all of that information to kind of work with the project team to kind of pick an alternative kind of after we have that better understanding of how much sediment might need to be removed and what that might look like. Checking in with regulators to see if things are kind of on the right track and look like they might be moving in a feasible direction from kind of all perspectives. We have included a review of well logs in the area. We did hear that there are some drinking water wells in the area that has come up at some of our previous dam removal locations. So this would be kind of using known well data, typically from the drilling logs, to kind of look at depths and connection to groundwater versus surface water. And then kind of moving into the concept design scenario here, where there would be a concept design as well as a cost opinion for kind of the next phases and thinking about like implementation and what that might look like. Kind of through this whole process, we've included a variety of both team meetings, which could be potentially a steering committee, as well as some locations in here where we have some public meetings to kind of give information and kind of exchange. So I think that's definitely an area where we're interested in feedback and kind of what you think that process might look like. And then kind of on the side, we also have tasks 5 and 6. So what we're thinking would be really the most beneficial is not only to kind of come up with a general idea as to kind of what the dam removal could look like, but also work through the process with the regulators to gain approval for basically a permanent drawdown. Like the idea that it would, in the fall, the gates are opened, there's quite a bit of water let out, the dam is operated at a lower water surface elevation, Like, what if we can just kind of continue that through all year long and start to have some of that vegetation happening? So the idea being that this kind of comprehensive process would not only come up with a good idea for what the dam removal could look like and feedback, but also the regulatory process and permits and approvals that we would need to kind of change the operations of the dam. Some of these permits may not be a full permit, but maybe more of submission of materials, meetings with the regulators, discussions with the regulators, and ultimately, for example, the dam safety program kind of wants all of those things, but they said they might not need to actually issue the dam order for the drawdown, but they want to be involved and have all of that submittal back and forth and everything. So, ultimately the drawdown permitting assistance task we expect it to include, all of that coordination and submissions with those regulators, but it may or may not require an actual permit from each of those agencies. We have heard that the DEC water quality certification would be required, and that is kind of a big permitting effort, but might kind of potentially supersede some of the other ones, like the stream malt and the wetlands would kind of be just pulled into that one. So we're still navigating exactly what those permits are, and frankly, I think that the regulators, some of them don't know until we get to task, like 4.3. Like, they want this information from kind of the first few tasks to be able to review that information and then make a decision as to whether or not they're going to need a permit or just the coordination and discussions. At this point, we can see there's a few things that we are not including right now, either because we don't think they'll be required at all, or because it's a very large, expensive task that we don't think we need for concept designs. There's some possibility that maybe going into final design or something, some of these things may or may not be needed, but we feel like we could get through kind of all of these tasks without those things. We do have a summary of costs for these. Like I said, the permit phase might be a larger number than what will ultimately be needed, and the drawdown design might actually be bigger than we might ultimately need. And as we move through the first phases, those costs might be able to be reduced. And I guess I would also say that, and Emily, jump in here so I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I have heard from Emily that her intention is to pursue grant funding to cover these costs, so it's not an ask for the town to put these costs forward. But this is the thinking of what these tasks would be.
Great. Well, thank you.
Yeah, and just to jump in here, my intention would be to raise the funds to cover this. It is quite a bit more expensive design than we typically raise funds for, so I think it might require some creativity about breaking up those tasks into chunks and raising money for the first bit and then the second bit, or whatever makes the most sense as we move along. So it may be that I can raise it all at once, and it also might be that it can be in steps.
Great. Well, thank you for providing such a detailed proposed task list for us. And just to recap, this is for a 30% design.
Yeah, and I guess I would say that some 30% designs for different various types of projects are quite light. Like, we inherited a 30% design done by a stormwater project, and it didn't consider the utilities. And so sometimes, I guess I would say that you may have seen 30% designs that still have big questions hanging out there. Like, our intention is that this would be probably a little bit more than 30% design, because we would have really figured out all of those big questions and volumes and things to to make sure we have a very informed process moving forward, so. Yes. 30, like a heavy 30% design is what I would say.
Great. Does the board have any questions, comments?
More information is always better.
Yep.
That's good, thank you.
I just have a question about the task list. How did you develop the task list? Like, is that like a standard dam removal task list?
You know, it's a really good question. So, so between those of us on our team at SLR, we've removed over 30 dams in Vermont and many others in surrounding states. We have done a lot of these.
Cool.
So it is based on that, but we also have added some things here we don't always include. So a lot of our dams in the state are what we call run-of-river dams. So the water coming in equals the water going out. They're often kind of skinny with a small impoundment behind them. For that type of dam, we would not be recommending task 3 because we wouldn't expect there to be a change in hydrology. But here, with the size of the impoundment and the known flood issues of the downstream communities, like that's one that we feel like would make sense to add here, just to feel comfortable about the situation. So that one is not necessarily a standard one. The drawdown permit work, we don't always do a separate phased drawdown. This is something that we have talked about with the regulators and got a lot of feedback from them, and it seems to be a very popular, well-supported process. So those are kind of the two things that I would say are a little bit different.
Yeah.
Great. I have a couple of questions, unless somebody else has questions. I was curious about some of the budget items, and then I also which I think is also tied into what's not included. So at what point would we know when we would need to include the not included items, and would we get separate estimates for those items?
These are items that we would expect to have, if needed, after 30% design.
Okay.
Because we're not planning on, per se, like digging in a wetland during the drawdown phase, we don't think we need a wetland delineation at this point. You sometimes don't need a wetland delineation for something like a restoration project, so it feels like we don't want to jump the gun on that kind of big task until we kind of have worked through more of this with the regulators and have them like specifically say that we need that. So that would be before a dam removal would be kind of where that would fit in. Topobathymetric survey, we may or may not actually need that. If we're feeling really comfortable with the cross-sectional survey and the drone images that we're able to collect, and they're really matching up really well, and might match the bathymetric survey we got from the ponds group of the state, like then we might not need that. So that's something that we would be able to confirm with the tasks in number 1 there. The structural assessment, like, we don't think you need to do that, because if the whole goal is to just take the dam out, we already know it's in rough shape. So, I mean, no one's going to require us to do a detailed structural assessment unless there's some move towards repair. So that's just in there to be clear that we're not doing that. But we don't expect that to be needed.
Great.
Lakes and ponds permitting, we had some initial feedback from this group where they gave some initial feedback that they don't regulate this water body the same way that they would per se Lake Champlain, because it is a man-made body. So that was just based on some initial contact with them. And then the facilities boat ramp design also, we did have someone from Vermont Fish and Wildlife kind of at our meeting, and they expressed no concern and felt like there could be other ways of accessing, and didn't seem like we needed some big process with them. So.
Okay, great. Great, thank you. That answers that. And my other question was, so for the different tasks, 1 through 6, we we started with this public process of having a joint meeting with HED, and there were a lot of people who came to that, which is fantastic. I don't want to speak for the board, but I think we would want to continue to have a public process to talk through the different options. So I guess my question is, do we have to do all 6 of the tasks if the community decides we want to do the drawdown? If that makes sense. Obviously, the community and the select board has not decided that right now, but I'm just wondering if there's like, if we have to do all of it in order to get the permitting assistance, it would make sense that we do. I'm just curious, like if the community decides that removal is not an option, does that mean we could not pay $40,000 for the removal part of the design if we don't want to do that? Or is it kind of an all, or like it just all needs to be done at once?
Some of this might come into play with the funding that Emily is able to get. So if her funding is tied to producing a 30% dam removal design, because that's kind of the goal of the funder, then we would need to do all of the tasks. So, I don't know.
Okay.
I think it.
Yeah, and at this point, I don't know how that would work in terms of what kind of funding I'm able to find. But I do think that's an interesting question. Like, are there, and we had talked about this a little bit, Jessica, like if the dam is drawn down and the information that we collect leads the public to decide, or us to decide, everyone to decide that removal doesn't make sense anymore, can we stop sort of at that point? Or like when we start to draw down, is that committing to moving forward? I don't think so, but I guess I just want, that also seems to be sort of what you're asking a little bit too, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, part of what I'm wondering too, and it's very helpful to have you, and we asked for this, so I really appreciate you coming and bringing, because I think it took something that was super conceptual, which was in the first meeting that we had, to something that feels now a little bit more real. There's some numbers behind it. There's clearly a lot of tasks that need to be done. A part of what I am thinking now is that in order to make a decision about these proposed tasks, we really need to have that community process to figure out what exactly we're doing. I could be wrong, but it seems like if we go down the road of we could do anything and then we decide in 6 months after a community process that actually we decide to do what. I'm just wondering what, like, sort of chicken and the egg, what makes sense to do first? Like, does it make sense to commit to this first and then get people involved and get feedback, or does it actually make sense to do it the reverse? And then that ties into my other question, which is about timing, because obviously proposals change. So if we decide, oh, we need to take 6 months to figure this out, how does that change the proposal and then the timing of permitting and all of that? So I'm just kind of, and it's not necessarily a question for you, Jessica, as much as it's a question for us as a town, like what we kind of need or want to do first for this project. And we don't necessarily have to decide it tonight. I'm just curious about, I think it's really more of a question for the board and the town, like where do we kind of go from here, and then where do we pull SLR in and our partners in, depending on where we're going next. So it's, I'm looking at you, but I'm also like.
I guess the one thing I would say is that I feel like we have enough information in what we already gave to give a lot of big questions, and we were hearing a lot of big questions from you all and from HED and from members of the public. And I think without kind of moving through, task 1, 2, 3, and partway through 4, in my opinion, you don't quite have enough information to weigh those benefits and maybe downsides. Like, what are they? Like, how does this affect downstream community? Like, we know that from a flood perspective, it's good for your community. Like, we're seeing that in the modeling already. So we are definitely seeing some benefits, but like kind of how do they all fit together? It feels like important information for your decision-making process.
So to recap that is basically we would want to have the information in this proposal, in the 30% design, to be able to accurately provide the different options to the community, and then we can figure out what's next.
Yeah.
But in order, I'm just thinking out loud, so that, then in that scenario, it does make sense to do it all versus waiting and then just doing one option, because then we're really putting all the cards on the table and being able to say, this is what makes sense, and then being able to give the community the information that they need to really make an educated decision about it.
I think so, and I think the second piece I would say is that from the information I have so far, a full year drawdown scenario appears to be a risk reduction feature or like strategy for you and HED, and because the less volume of stuff, whether it's water or sediment that's behind that dam, the less pushing on it, and it's the less that if the dam breaks because of its poor condition, it's the less water and sediment like move downstream in an uncontrolled manner. So I guess I would say I feel like there's a lot of really good information to help you make an informed decision in 1 through 4, and then 5 and 6 are, it feels like good kind of risk reduction pathway.
The other piece to add in here, if I can, is the, I think Kristen gave you all a little outline of a steering committee, an idea for a steering committee that she had, and she wrote that up. And I think, yeah, I agree, I totally agree with what Jessica is saying. I think doing it simultaneously is kind of the most fair way to give the community the information that they're going to be asking anyways during any public process, right? And so the idea with the steering committee is that would be their role, is to help advise on what that public process could be and what it looks like and how many different meetings and what their, what the content is, and sort of keep a pulse on what the community is asking and help us be able to respond accordingly. And I think doing it at the same time as gathering this data, maybe after some key pieces are complete, would make the most sense.
Great, thanks, Emily. And sorry, I don't want to take up all the airspace here with questions, but is there, if the board were to decide to accept this concept, the 30% design, is there a timeline for completion of that, or roughly when we're?
Some of that is how speedy Emily can be in obtaining.
Yeah.
So ideally, most of these tasks would be completed between now and this time next year, so that at this time next year, the dam is not refilled. Like ideally, we would have gotten to that point of saying, okay, we're just allowed to go forward with the drawdown, just not refilling it. So, I mean, I think that would be great. I don't know if that timeline is going to work with grant cycles and all of that, but that would be the idea. And then we received some feedback from the regulators on the idea of kind of allowing that sediment, assuming there's a drawdown through the summer months, allowing that sediment to like set up and dry out and have vegetation on it at least a year, maybe even 2 or 3 years to really get that vegetation going before doing any kind of removal. So I think, based on that feedback, removal is probably 3 to 5 years out with this kind of thing. So lots of time for discussions and feedback from the committee, the steering committee, if you go that route, and public meetings and education.
Great, thank you.
And I guess I would just like a lot of that information before committing to any of that so that we could have more public engagement.
Great, thank you. So tonight we were kind of getting that presentation, which we really appreciate. We didn't have an action for it from the board. But it probably makes sense, I think, to include a possible action in either the next meeting or the meeting after, so that way we can let you know how we're going to move forward.
And wait for the money piece
Yeah, so I guess that's
before you
part
make an action.
Well, I guess that's one of the other question, leading to the other question I was going to ask Emily, which is how much of a commitment do you need from the board before, I would imagine you need something before asking for money for the project.
Yeah, I mean, I think a little bit of it depends on, like, now I have this number, and I have, before I put a lot of effort into finding grant funding that supports $200,000, I guess I would want to know that the board is interested in moving forward, basically. I think the action is, well, I don't know, you're the select board, so you get to decide the action, but I think the action might be like, is the select board supportive of continuing down this path of removal? That would be useful for me in terms of fundraising. I don't think anyone's going to give any money to us without that. I also think like consideration of a steering committee, and then, you know, the process outlined in that document has some points related to the select board approving that steering committee. So I would want that to happen in a similar timeline. I guess the other point I'll make is that I've spoken with a few project managers, and this project hasn't actually gone out to bid for design. We hired SLR to do the feasibility study because they were already working on the modeling study, and we didn't have a lot of funding at the time, and so it just made sense to connect those two. I think to leave ourselves open for any possible sources of funding moving forward, it would make sense to put the 30% design, concept design out to bid, and have a bidding process, and that's something that the Conservation District could run, and that would just sort of like cross our T's and dot our I's and say, you know, look, we did go out to bid at some point during this process. I need to still talk a little bit more with Jessica about like what information is provided to potential bidders to, you know, give everyone as fair a chance as possible. But yeah, that's another piece. So that you know, that process would take about a month, but I probably wouldn't want to do that until I'm like pretty sure that I at least have the funding to start with the design. So I think in order to like, for me to spend the time like starting to go down that road, I guess I would need to know that the select board is ready to keep moving down that path. And you know, it is possible that we would find out information during this process where like something doesn't make sense, we need to change the approach, we need to consider things other than removal. So it's not, the select board is certainly not signing anything today saying that they want to remove the dam. We just want enough information, right? But just a confirmation that, or not, that you're ready to move forward would be useful to me, this meeting or next meeting. But then again, that sort of like delays my process a little bit.
Although didn't we vote already to go forward with a 30% design? Like
We voted to go forward with an estimate for a 30% design.
this is as far as we went forward already?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was...
So what's the...
I'm open, I would like more information, but I don't want to commit to a full project, as I said. Like,
Right, I'm open to studying it.
Correct, but,
The next chunk of study
right.
is
Yes.
all I'm open to
Agreed.
today.
Emily, would it be possible for you, because we would really be partnering with your organization, would it be possible for you to put together like a letter of support that we could review, that maybe outlines like what the commitments would be, like a very rough timeline, kind of what, and I think, you know, which is wonderful. We have a lot of partners who provide us with grant support, but I think we're always a little bit hesitant to say yes or no without really seeing what that looks like. So maybe like a letter or a little statement for the next meeting that we can review. Would that be helpful?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I heard most of what you said, but
Oh, okay.
it's a little hard to hear that. But yes, I'm hearing that you want like a letter of support that says what you're committing to, essentially, and then maybe like a timeline for how I envision that moving forward. And I did hear someone say hesitant to commit to a whole project. I think that's fine. I think there's a couple of tasks in the beginning that, again, like when I'm fundraising, I may have to separate out anyways because I can't get $200,000 from one grant source. So it's definitely going to be like a little bit of a piecemeal process moving forward, at least initially. Well, at some point, there's a point of no return, but we're certainly not there yet. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean,
But yeah, I can do that.
we really appreciate you and SLR keeping this ball rolling, because it really was a very quick turnaround I thought, for putting information together on the 30% design. That's really appreciated. And I think if we have that as an agenda item for our next meeting, we can move forward on what the next action steps are for that design. So thank you very much. Does the board have any other questions for these folks? Thank you for coming all the way out. It's a beautiful night. Feel free to stay if you want to. Great. Next, we have the select board to consider approving the 2026 local emergency management plan, the LEMP.
The Hardwick plan, yeah.
The Hardwick plan. Kristen, did
Local
you
emergency
want
management plan.
to talk about this at all? Do you feel, okay. Anybody have
I'd make a motion to
I was
approve.
gonna say, yeah, I'll second that.
any discussion?
It's really thorough.
I liked it.
Yep. Yeah. It's,
So there was one C missing. I'll find you later.
Okay.
I think it's page 13. It says immunity instead of community.
Okay,
Page 10, page 13.
It's like a headline in the Hardwick Gazette.
It's like, it's just like, I read it last night and I'm like, wait a minute, there's a C missing. So I'll find it again.
Pending proofreading.
Proofread it. Oh, well, I think we can go forward.
great. Well, thank you again for putting that together. It's super important.
It's important stuff.
All those in favor of approving the 2026 local emergency management plan, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's 4 ayes. The ayes have it. Thank you again. Next we have and I'm going to sign, I got it right here, Kristen, no worries. Item 3, select board to consider approval of a 3-year IBEW contract for the Highway Department Collective Bargaining Unit and to authorize the town manager to sign it. Tim has really put a lot into this. We really appreciate that, as well as Opie, and then also to our fantastic Highway Department. I don't know, Tim, if there's anything you want to touch on?
I would just like to say that the negotiations went smoothly. It was back and forth. Again, I think it ended where both sides are happy, which is what you want in compromise and negotiations. We have a great road crew. It's great to work with those guys, and I really appreciate them. So I would fully recommend, and I would make a motion to authorize the town manager to sign the contract with them.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Great, thanks again, Tim. Next, we have item 4, select board to consider appointing members of the Buffalo Mountain Steering Committee. Action is needed. So just to recap, there were some questions about this before. I know there's some folks in the audience. Very happy that you're here in person. Just wanted to touch on some questions that came up at the special town meeting. So we created the steering committee for the Buffalo Mountain Town Forest project. There are 17 seats open. One of the questions that came up at the meeting was, could you continue to apply or submit a letter? The answer is yes, until all of those seats are fulfilled. And even if we nominate everybody tonight, that still leaves some seats open. So if you're listening and you're interested, there is more information online. You're welcome to stop by the town manager's office. But I just wanted to put that out there, that there would be some openings. I know we have some folks here who have put their names forward. Would anybody who's here like to just say anything about their letter or interest? You don't have to, but if you're here, you're welcome to.
No, I'll just say, I didn't come tonight to talk about my application to be on the steering committee. I came sort of wearing the NRLC hat and would like to talk, when we get to that stage, about moving forward with the steering committee once we get to the place.
Okay, great. Thanks, Paul.
I have a question, and I didn't have a chance to look it up last night. Did we say that Hardwick residency is required?
We did.
Okay.
we made that pretty clear.
And that others could,
They had to be
you know,
taxpayer of-
join
No, I think
meetings.
it was just resident, but I didn't know if we extended that to like professionals, you know, in the adjacent area that may have relevant experience.
It was something like that, but I thought it was like
But
ad
we didn't want to
hoc, not
exclude
membership.
residents who may or may not be, you know, who are maybe renters, who are not necessarily taxpayers, but we didn't want to exclude, so that's why we did.
Right, residents.
Exactly,
Yeah,
residents,
yeah.
not just.
I'm pretty sure that's
taxpayers.
what,
I am going to ask Amanda, do you mind pulling, if you can, pulling up what was specifically written about that? I
I'll look
apologize,
too.
I didn't.
I believe we did end on residents.
yeah, I think, I mean, I'm fairly certain.
So that
Fairly
was,
certain we did.
that was a question, was the residents.
Yeah.
Would anybody else who's here like to say anything for their, in addition to their letter? You don't, again, you don't have to, you made the effort to come. Love having people in the audience, so.
Well, hi, Rachel Kane. I had not, did not put my name forward for the steering committee. I would like to assist the committee and when it starts meeting and be available. If it turns out that there's room and that would be useful to have a full contingent, I would be happy to be an official member and send in a letter of interest. But I just wanted to say that. I want to be available and helpful with background and so forth, if that's useful.
This might not be the last.
Thank you.
It says members must be a resident or taxpayer of Hardwick.
Okay. So that answers the question for Dylan, for that letter, for Dylan LaFlamme, who submitted the letter. I will say that, as I say that, and I've talked to many other people about this as well, is that these will be public meetings. I think that there will be, if not themes, then times where there are specific things talked about at certain meetings. For example, recreation or forestry, where people will be invited. I don't know, the steering committee hasn't really formed yet, but I imagine there would be invitations to people with relevant experience to come talk. There will be partners, I would imagine, like Dylan or various other businesses who could be included in the planning process, but you don't have to be a voting member of the steering committee. So I think that was there was some confusion about that in the community, that a part of what the steering committee is going to do is pull in a lot of different people. So I think there's an opportunity for Dylan, for example, to be a partner in this process, but not be a voting member of the committee, if that makes sense. Does the board have any questions about the letters we received, or?
No?
I have the
Not about the
letters with
letters.
me if anybody has questions.
Not that they were all fine.
I have a question for Paul, kind of related to the trust, the land trust. Are there requirements that the land trust will give the steering committee to have to work off of? Is there a rubric that they need to follow? Or is there a blank slate for the steering committee?
Well, it's not a blank slate in the sense, it's not that the land trust will provide that, but I think
There's stipulations somewhere.
yeah, in other words, the goal of this, actually, it's in your plan.
It's in the guidance document.
Yeah.
That the developing a management plan for select board review.
Right.
And that's what the job is.
Right.
essentially.
I understand.
But there's nothing,
I understand that.
Yeah.
But it also says that the land trust has to approve it
yeah,
as well.
the management plan.
Right. So are there any predetermined expectations from the land trust that the steering committee will have to navigate? And should they know that ahead of time rather than finding out at the end of the plan?
I can't find it.
I actually don't know the answer to that question. It sort of depends on the easement agreement. You know, like, there's certain things that we've talked about in the discussions with the board and in our public meetings, that
about what's allowed and what's not allowed and that sort of stuff.
Right.
So that can be presented, that would be presented in the court probably at the first meeting.
Right.
In terms of what's on the table, what's not on the table in terms of uses. But beyond that, I'm not thinking of anything else.
Okay. Thank you.
And
Yeah.
it's just to follow up with that theme a little bit, it's my understanding that there will be continued support not only from NRLT, but also from, Jack will also be helping to support the meetings in various ways. I'm sure Hannah and Redmond will also be as well. So it's like there's going to be support from the various other partners as well for the steering committee.
Yes, and actually I should say, I think I don't know if I've said it at the select board meeting, but you definitely have said it in the presentations, that Hannah, everybody at Northern Rivers are volunteers. We don't have any staff. Hannah is paid staff, paid by Trust for Public Land, and she's available to staff the committee, essentially to do work in between meetings, do research, bring it back, answer those kind of questions. So we would help with that, but TPL has much more capacity to actually do it. But so the answer is yes, and it would mainly be Hannah and TPL that we would rely on for that.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that. Of course, now after the sun is going directly into my eyes, so you'll get massive squinting. Apologies for that. Oh, thanks, Sophie. Perfect. Does the board have any?
I'm still a little stuck on Dylan LaFlamme's application or desire to be on the committee because they own land right next to they have a camp up there. I mean, that's
So
not a resident.
But he's a
but
taxpayer?
I think it's is it in Woodbury, the camp?
I don't know, but yeah, in the description in his letter, he seemed like he had a vested interest in seeing the work of the steering committee be effective and positive. So,
as I said, I think that you can still continue to do that without being a voting member. And I do think we had a long conversation about how we were going to set parameters for steering committee members, and the board decided to have it be Hardwick residents or taxpayers. If we want to clarify with Dylan, if he pays tax on Hardwick land, then that would be a follow-up question. But I think we have to stick.
Yeah.
I mean, we can certainly, I think we can invite Dylan to participate as a partner.
Yeah, since we don't have all the spaces filled,
I'm inclined to agree with you. However, to maintain the integrity of what we did vote on, I think it's important and wise to do that, especially given, the events of last week.
I think we also, even if we don't accept one nomination, have a very full group of 13 people who could successfully start this project.
Yeah.
There's also going to be a table at Springfest in which Norma has these applications. So I assume at next select board meeting, there will be even more.
Yeah. So one of the things that the board talked a lot about as well before putting this out for nominations was making sure that it felt like the people who were nominated could fit a variety of different strengths needed for this project. So we talked about experience in conservation and forestry and recreation and education, and I personally think that this is a well-rounded group of people who have a lot of different experience in the community and bring a lot to the table. But it's a question for the rest of the board. That was something that we really thought was important, was to make sure that and again, we have some, even if we vote everybody in, there's still some spaces to fill people in, but it is a question if we feel like that's being addressed here.
Well, I wonder if we also need to, leave a couple spaces for Select Board, Planning Commission, Conservation Committee, Conservation Commission representatives, because we at least in the draft, I don't have the final version because I just don't know how to find it, but I have the draft. We called out those organizations as possible representation.
I know that,
And some people are both already.
Well,
Some of our letter, our applicants are on various things. It's pretty exciting.
yeah, I mean, I think we have a lot already covered. I mean, we know we have, Joe covers at least 2 with the Trails
Well-
Committee. Go ahead.
Yeah, so actually, on the committees that I'm part of, so Trails and the Conservation Commission, we voted at our last meeting about who would be the designated representative, and I was chosen for the Conservation Commission, which I put in my application, and Andy was chosen for the Trails Committee. So that's how we did it. I don't know if the planning committee wants
We
to
didn't
do
talk
the
about
same.
it yet.
Kind of my thinking around this is to, instead of just like blanket accepting everybody, it's like, I appreciate that you guys went back to the committee, you said, okay, this is who we want as representative, to approve that. I also am for kind of the people who have showed vested interest, right, who have showed up to meetings, who have
Right.
written us personally, who have been vocal in that, and again, nothing against any of these people, and they may have reached out to more of the people in the town office. I'm just not aware of that, but maybe starting off with half of these people, for example, and then to form the committee and then filling it in maybe after Springfest, or, just to again, maybe
I'm not sure why you would want to do that.
I guess I would just like to see, making sure, my hesitancy is to just like blanket appoint everybody without taking into consideration maybe the future ones or future interests that may
Right.
be a more well-rounded committee. Whereas I think, I don't know everybody on this list. I haven't heard from everybody on this list.
Right,
I know
right.
some have been more or less vocal. Again, it's like
Yeah.
someone like Joe or Andy have.
I would just say, sorry, just give me 1 second. I appreciate that. I would say that everybody in this list has done what we've asked, which is providing a
The integrity
letter.
of our process.
We haven't
In the
asked
time
anybody to
frame.
come to a meeting, and so it's not really actually fair to say that only the people who have been able to show up to personal meetings could be on the committee. So I'm just saying, no, because it's important.
No,
Because
yeah.
some people, goes right back to what we were talking about at the special town meeting. There's some people who maybe are not able to make the meetings at this current time.
Sure.
So I think the question is more, and we can't necessarily answer that as a select board about who might in the future of this committee be more or less engaged is impossible for us to know. So I think we have to take those letters at face value, just like any of the committees that we appoint.
Oh, sure. I mean, and again, it's not that I want to kind of exclude anybody or say that that is a necessary demand. It's more of waiting to fill them. I don't know that we need to appoint everybody and then it's filled, and then maybe there's 10 people that see it at Springfest that apply and they say, hey, actually, you would have really relevant experience.
They
to this.
can attend meetings just like Dylan can and still be part of the process and the conversation, the discussion, anything that happens at those meetings, the open meetings.
I kind of think, Tim, if we don't have a reason to say no to somebody on here, like Dylan, we have a specific reason, even if I think he'd be great at it. We have a specific reason fitting the rules we wrote. I think everyone else, saying no to anyone else on this list feels to me like we're opening a can of worms that I don't want to open. Like, why would we say no to
That's fair.
which of these people?
I mean, I guess I just welcome that, that more passioned interest, I guess I would say.
Yeah.
So, and the letter's great. And I'm not saying,
there's room for some more.
and I'm just, of course there are. I'm just
Yeah.
bringing that up as a point
Yeah.
of like,
Yeah,
So
it's a point.
I do think just a follow up on this. So one of the questions that I got a lot at the special town meeting as well was what is actually the time commitment for this group, which we haven't clarified partially because the group hasn't been formed yet. It's my understanding from the Trust for Public Lands that in order for this to actually work, the plan will have to be approved before the end of December, which is going to mean a significant amount of a time commitment for people, which we weren't really able to put into the application because we weren't sure exactly how that was going to work. So I'm wondering if a follow-up to, if we were to say, everyone, you wonderful, you applied, thank you very much, we have nominated you. If we said, in being nominated, you'll be expected to participate in 2 meetings a month until the end of December. If you decide that's too big of a commitment, let us know. Because I did get a lot of questions that day about, oh, I really want to do this, but I don't know what the commitment is, and it's my understanding that the commitment is going to be pretty big from now until December. It's not like being on a committee that meets once a month until the rest of time. It's like it's going to be a pretty intensive couple of months. So I'm wondering if that's kind of the follow-up, like, thank you, we are going to nominate you, but this is, I don't even know if we can do that.
Well, right, well, that's where there is kind of that gray area, and it is at our discretion, and that's kind of in line with my thinking of like making sure that, you know, the people that we nominate are going to, you know, be dedicated towards that, because ultimately we are the ones that are going to have to sign off and answer for that. So, you know, part of that is our responsibility as well to kind of be like, okay, let's talk about that, you know, and it's, you know, again, I'm not saying I would want to, I don't, again, I'm more so just going on the people that have either, again, been nominated by their own committees or who have come to the meetings or have reached out personally and showed interest, and again, not wanting to disparage or exclude anyone on that. It's just some I don't, and maybe that's my own fault, right, for not knowing or knowing them, but it's wanting to make sure the right people are on the committee, because ultimately we're signing off on it.
I also think, you know, we'll have a representative and we'll be receiving the information, or we might have a representative, I should say, you know, it was a possibility. And we have 13 residents and possibly an additional taxpayer who want to work. Like, this is another one of these signs that we're doing something right.
Sure.
And then we have a town where we've got 13 people who are saying, yeah, I'll sign up for work. I don't want to turn anybody away.
Sounds like you got the vote, so it's okay, you know, it's like, it could be 3 against 1, I'm okay with that.
You know,
I'm just voicing this as a concern, it's fine, we can,
Okay.
I'm not gonna fight you too hard.
I think we should be upfront with these people though, because it says periodic evening meetings. So if it's going to be heavy load twice a month, we should be upfront with them now.
Yep.
Instead of just the periodic. So I'm more than happy to send these people an email saying, are you available for more regular meetings?
And so,
from now
like,
until December.
Do we have a concrete, and maybe Paul can speak to that?
About the time?
Yeah, like, would that be like 2 meetings?
Yeah, what we've been saying is, because we're getting this, a late start essentially toward this goal of closing by the end of the year, that at least for the first 3 months, it would be meeting twice a month. And it could be more than that. It really depends on the committee and how that goes. But I think people should plan on, so Kayla, you're right, that people should plan on 2 meetings a month. And
2 hour
meetings.
2 hour meetings.
You know, and I think, you know, in an acceptance letter to each of these people saying, you know, we got your letter, we approved it. Please understand that it's going to be busy for a couple months, 2 hours, you know, give them that detail. And they're likely to say, great, that's what I signed up for. And some of them aren't going to make it through the process. Even if we had them sign an affidavit saying, I will come to every meeting. Some of them aren't going to anyway, because that's what people do. They have lives and things come up and they can't do everything. So I think we absolutely should tell them it's, you know, a few months of 4 hours a month or more, or whatever, you know, the way to word it, I don't care about that. Write it the way you want. But let them know, and then we'll get going. And we can't wait too long. We've got 13 people who are interested. I know a couple people didn't submit anything until after town meeting, and I know at least one of those 2 people, or 3 people after town meeting. One of them was kind of jazzed by the debate and the conversation, and was like, "This is great. I want in. Like, I'm excited to help out." Is basically what he said, and I feel like we should capitalize. We've got people. Let them know what the time is. Let them know what the commitment is, and they'll make it or they won't.
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
I want,
Paul, do you mind stating?
I'm actually going to ask a question sort of of Paul.
He didn't
Yeah. Andrew, do you mind just stating your name? Sorry. Thank you.
Well, because you mentioned earlier that Hannah would be available as a resource to the committee. And I guess what I'm trying to get at is, it's a public committee and it's a group of people. Who's actually writing the management plan? Is it like, what's a realistic expectation of how that process really works?
Well, I think in terms of how that works is Hannah would, in other words, there's a committee discussion typically, points get made about what is in it, a draft gets done, Hannah would do that, get it back to the committee for review, that kind of conversation. So, I don't know exactly how that goes, but basically that's what I would expect. But the important point is that Hannah's available to do that. Somebody would have to do that, and it's hard to find a volunteer on the committee that would make the time available off, in addition to the 2 meetings a month, to do that work. So, that's how the plan would work.
Great.
I would imagine. So if I could just say one thing here, in terms of trying to address the issue that Amanda raised and also keep the process moving, one possibility is that in one communication, the board could say, we are offering or sent the appointment of this position to you, and saying what's expected in that letter, and also setting the first meeting date so that's clear, and time, because I think that's important that the board do that, because otherwise it just kind of floats about how do we get the ball rolling, and then just ask them to get back to Amanda with a response. Please confirm that you want to be on the committee, essentially. And then it saves Amanda having to make calls and whatever, but it just gets the job done in terms of communicating to people what's expected as clearly as possible, and at the same time getting a confirmation that they're still on board.
So in line with that, asking the 3 members here who applied for that, what is an evening that would work for you for a timeline? Like, what is your proposal for the first meeting that would actually work?
I have a section. So
I'm asking all 3 of you.
Yeah. So I'll just say, I would say that the first meeting should be sometime in the first week of June, and I would pick the first day, June 1st, and 6 o'clock, 6 to 8 p.m.
It's
So week after next.
What about the numbers?
It's a Monday.
Yeah, 6 to 8's fine. It's just like Monday works for you guys. That's okay.
What about the numbers that apply that?
So that's what I mean. It's like,
So I think to add to that, because we are also, basically, that's a great idea, Paul. I think the board should decide if that's something they want to do, would be to ask. I think it makes sense for the board to ask the town manager's office to help support the first meeting, and then after that first meeting, then the committee can figure out their own schedule. They can take it from there. But for the first meeting, I would just recommend doing a doodle poll, because you have 13 members and it's going to be basically impossible. And it already came up at a previous meeting where we talked about somebody asked if there was going to be a hybrid option. So maybe for the very first meeting, we could just go ahead and say that it probably should take place at the library, because they have an owl set up. They have an easy way to have it be
You have to
hybrid.
request the owl
That's what I'm saying, we'd have to request it.
from the town.
But these are all logistical things for the first meeting that I think the select board could take on for the committee, because there's nobody unless we appointed everybody tonight and then said, Paul, Joe, and Andy, if you want to figure out the first meeting, great, which I suppose we could do.
I'd like to be at the first meeting.
So
Can you be there on the
first of June? One other little piece to this is we actually drafted a suggested agenda for the first meeting, which I could, because there's the problem of electing a chair, or who's running the meeting, all that stuff. So,
Some organization.
so if you want to look at that, I'm happy to hand that out.
I'd like to move this
along.
I just wanted to say another thing. Tim, you're talking about not being sure everyone here was interested, and over the past few months, the Conservation Commission was taking names for the steering committee because there wasn't a process from the select board. And so I recognize a few of these names as people who came to our information sessions, came to
Sure.
our hikes and stuff, so, I mean, I don't know if it's worth conferring with us.
Yeah, I just am.
I get your point.
Thank you. I mean, I didn't mean to disparage anyone on that list or, you know, I just want to make sure we're giving everybody a fair shake.
Sure.
Because I know there was obviously a lot of interest in this.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
If the first meeting is June 1st, but there's other applicants that apply at Springfest, which won't be appointed until June 4th, then they miss the first meeting, potentially.
I think that's okay. I mean, that happens with other committees.
Yeah.
Like, the people are nominated throughout the process. I don't think, I mean, if the seats aren't filled in my mind until July 4th and somebody decides they want to do it and they write us a letter, they can be appointed at any time. Obviously, ideally, the sooner the better, just for the process of the committee. But as I said before, there is going to be a full group of people anyway. So there's a solid 13 people working on this if we decide to approve everybody tonight. So I don't think 4 open seats should hold up at a June 1st meeting. Joe?
How many people do we need in person at the meeting? Like a quorum for conducting business?
Half.
It's half?
More
So
than half.
It would be
One more than half.
9.
Do they have to be in person or
Well-
attending via Zoom or?
No, they can be Zoom.
Right,
Yeah.
right, that's what I thought.
And that's half of the number of people that have been appointed at that point.
Right, so you need 7.
7.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so it's, okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Do you want to make the motion? You want me to?
You too, yeah.
So, are you okay with that?
I think it's great.
I'm ready to make the motion that we appoint the 13 people, not Dylan at this time, and ask them to join a meeting on June 1st at 6 PM, given the library's available. Mondays, what are their hours even? It doesn't matter, right?
The room is different from their hours.
Right, so, yeah.
Pending library availability.
Pending the library availability, but
They can also meet
they can
here.
also meet here if they have to.
There's a motion.
Second.
Any other discussion? The only other discussion piece to follow up with Larry's question about if there should be a select board representative, I think somebody should attend the meetings as a select board member. I don't think they necessarily have to be a voting member of the committee, the same way that OP would be able to go to those, unless the board decides they want to have a select board member be a voting member.
I'm not going to
Say
commit to
ex
all
parte.
of them, but I will try to make it to some, obviously.
I want to go to the first couple,
So does that,
That's fine with me.
okay,
just to make sure that
great.
it's civil.
I mean, we
All
have to
those-
vote on it anyway, so I'm like, it's not like I don't need to.
All those in favor of the appointments described in the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Great, and the ayes have it. Thank you all for coming and providing your feedback.
So one of the things is that when the notice was out to the 13 people, if you agree with the agenda, that should be included so that people know what to expect when they get
Yeah,
there. And I can provide that electronically to Amanda if you want.
yeah, that would be good.
And then you can modify it. It
Nice.
shouldn't say suggested, it can just say agenda or whatever.
Yeah,
Okay, so I'll send that to you.
yes, please, thank
Thank you
you.
very much, Amanda, and thank you all for coming. Thanks, Paul.
Okay.
Great, so we have one final item, and thank you to everybody who's not here who applied for that. It's awesome to have so many people wanting to be involved in that.
Nothing personal.
Do we want to figure something out for communicating with Dylan or just ask the town to reach?
I'll just,
You're okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm sure you're gonna do this already, if you don't mind just telling Dylan that they're
It's like,
welcome to participate.
And if
Would be
he's, if that property is in Hardwick, you said you're not sure or you're sure?
yeah, I'd like to see if he's a taxpayer.
Yeah, I mean,
If he's a taxpayer, then
If
sure.
that property's in Hardwick, then we would reconsider that for sure.
Great. Okay, so thanks again, Amanda, for taking all that on. Last item is item 5, select board to discuss the select board retreat, date and topics. we do need to make an adjustment to the date.
When was the
Right.
date?
Why?
June,
So I
23rd.
have a conflict I didn't know about.
Jeez, Larry.
Yeah, it's a family thing, and I am not fully in charge of family events. I share those responsibilities.
What's your proposed other time?
I don't have a proposed other time. We'll be out of town almost definitely until the Wednesday night of that week. So now I don't remember without looking at it.
24th?
Let me just make sure when we're coming back, if we're coming back on the 24th or we'll be back. I think the plan is that we will be back by the evening of the 24th. So we will not be in town on the 23rd like I thought. And I didn't know that when I answered the doodle poll, and I'm really sorry for that.
Tuesday the 30th afternoon or Wednesday the 1st morning or afternoon. Probably Tuesday or Wednesday afternoon would be best for me, the 30th or the 1st. I don't know if we can do that now, but
Yeah, I don't
I
know.
would
how
lock,
that-
I would
yeah, know
lock, I
that-
would lock that in with us right now, but
You're talking about July 1st?
yeah,
June.
June 30th and July 1st.
I could do morning on the 1st.
That would, I am away that week.
All week.
Darn.
Sorry.
That's not a good.
Jeez,
for
Katie.
staff either.
Yeah.
That's not good for staff.
Year end.
Because it's the very
No.
last week, that's why we want to do. What about the week before? Oh, you can't, you're done with. Well, do we just,
Well, I mean,
because
what about
Derek-
Thursday
Why
or
don't you boot
Friday?
it to August?
We could.
August,
Part of the
sorry.
reason why we moved it to June 1st
Was-
is because we were gonna do the bond. We were talking about doing the bond.
Yeah, we should
So
do
if we're
that.
not doing
And
that.
also because grant deadlines are approaching, and if we wait
June.
until fall, there'll be
Right,
some that
right.
are
I'm
missed,
so
but there
sorry.
may be some that are missed anyway because we no longer have a,
June 16th or 17th.
That's the end of school, that's usually a time.
Can't do that.
We could do, we only have one meeting in July, so we can either do July or August. There's less of a time crunch without doing that bond vote. That's why we wanted it to be June.
Tuesday or Wednesday is best for me. So,
I don't think we have to decide tonight. We're just not doing it on the date that we scheduled
Okay.
it.
Okay.
And we can
Thank you, and I'm.
go back to the drawing board.
Can you just list
you
the name?
you owe me a drink.
Can you just,
That would be my pleasure.
can you just list the agenda items you want on the,
Right now?
yeah.
Great. I would love to talk about the highway garage.
I'd like to talk about the wastewater plant, the dam.
I would like to talk about town meeting and voting and such.
Yeah. Flood mitigation.
Affordability, you want to see?
Yeah. No, I genuinely want to know.
I would like to talk about pretty much in line with like all of our committees and how to figure out streamlining,
So
consolidating.
organizational structure.
Organizational structure of town
Policy
government.
review,
There we go.
schedule.
Like
Okay.
it.
We're gonna need
Housing.
about 6 of these sessions.
Huh?
Housing.
Housing.
Well, some of these might be a quick.
Housing slash development.
Okay.
Because I'm wondering, I mean, a part of, we haven't had a board retreat in a really long time, and we have new members as well. Have we had a retreat since you've been on the board?
No.
Yeah. So
Or maybe you did, but I couldn't go.
No,
No.
we haven't.
Okay.
part of this could be like, so if we just do a brainstorm, like a brain dump of the things we want to talk about, and then send it out to board members, and then maybe we say, these are the top 3 things, like this is the main priority.
Prioritize.
And then if we get to it, let's talk about these things, or let's commit to putting them on a future agenda to talk about. So maybe and the staff too, the staff who would be attending that meeting could also say, these are some of the, maybe that's a way to kind of determine.
Okay, we'll set the agenda,
Okay,
and then you guys can chime in.
okay.
And I think some of those might be quick of like just, we touch on some points and we say, okay, we're all on the same page, and we'll pending more information from
Yeah.
the town manager's office, whatever, so. All right.
Great. Okay, so we'll find another time to do that. Thank you for keeping us up to date on that, Amanda. Next is we have select board reports. Okay, we have new business. I do have a couple of new business items, new business, old business. I just wanted to first thank everybody who came to the special town meeting on Tuesday. It was really amazing to see so many people there. One of my takeaways was that in the moments where there were breaks or times where the community could just talk, it was a buzz of neighbors talking to each other and checking in. And I thought it was just a really incredible opportunity for so many people to be together. So I really appreciated that. I think that we heard, and this is kind of what you were just saying, Larry, I think we heard a lot from the community about things that we specifically as a select board can do better, and then also generally as a town. So I'm personally really looking forward to digging into that a little bit more. So I'm hoping that we can, at a future, hopefully the next agenda or the agenda after that, we certainly need to talk about a town meeting steering committee or task force that can address some of the issues and challenges that were brought up at that meeting. So I'm hoping we have that as a discussion item for our next agenda. Perhaps we could even invite some of the people who spoke to that to come to provide some ideas. And then the other thing I'm really hoping we can add to another agenda is this idea that Opie had of a public engagement process for real estate and what that would look like, because I think it was a really good idea. It wasn't even necessarily real estate, it was like how do we
say public engagement in general.
How do we just engage the public? Do we have a policy for it? Do we have when do we go beyond just asking people to come to us twice a month to engage the public? So I'm really hoping that we can, obviously we need to do that. A part of that is this online system doesn't work. It doesn't work for people attending the meetings. It definitely doesn't work for people who, we haven't had select board members really try to call in before, but when we did, you can't join remotely, which makes it really difficult. I think it would be great for staff to even be able to do that and not have to ask them to come in every single evening. So to me, in terms of old business, it's a high priority to figure out how we can make the meetings actually hybrid.
And I think, just to add on to that, not to contradict or challenge any of that, it's just that this is a sacrifice for all of us, and it's a lot of time, and it's a commitment, and it is, and I've said this often in here, it's the responsibility of the taxpayer, of the citizen, to be informed, to participate, and please come to these meetings, please reach out to us, please talk, I've invited many people to a coffee or a beer or whatever to talk about these issues, wanting to make time, wanting to make sacrifice, and be flexible to hear what people want in the town, and I think that's part of our duty, our civic duty, to engage in that way. So I agree, more public outreach, but also come to the meeting, please.
I think it's also, it would be a good thing to maybe add another posting of the agenda so that people know what we're going to be talking about at these different meetings, especially as we get into budget season.
Sure.
And having that agenda item a little bit more clear, which areas we're going to discuss so that people can identify that. And maybe we want to post our agendas on Front Porch Forum.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah, the school board was doing that for a while.
Yeah. Just so that people have it, they're seeing it in different ways. Just because, if they were able to come to the budget items that they're most interested in discussing, then they have more opportunity to help create it versus having to try to amend it later. And if we have it on the Australian ballot, that is less possible. Although holding two different information sessions, one that's in the daytime and one that's in the evening ahead of town meeting, was another thought that I had as I walked home the other night. So that they're different time frames, so people can maybe fit it into their schedule to come to those.
Well, I think that when we create a task force for it, there's already a strong start in the town meeting survey. of feedback about it, which is great. So that's already putting that task force a step ahead, thanks to Amanda in the town offices for putting that together. So I just wanted to bring it up as those, for me anyway, those two things are important, and so to add those as items for discussion for a future agenda would be great. Any other new old business?
The old business of the rec committee and creating a task force or identifying stakeholders or all the things that we said at the last meeting. I don't know where that's at. I know that I did some, drafting of ideas. But I don't know if that's on another agenda item at a future meeting, but fairly soon.
I think that does deserve an agenda item to.
Yeah.
And
we're gonna
the trails meets on the first Monday of the month, so. Yeah. Or inviting them to us to come here.
Mm-hmm. And we also need to bring back the economic loan.
It's on the next agenda.
Oh, it's on the next agenda already.
Yep. Great. Any other? So I think just to respond to that, Sherry, I think the to-dos, it was great that you put together some revisions to that. I think the main to-do would be, Opie and I talked about the two of us going to a trails committee or talking to a couple of the other partners. We can certainly do that. I still need to get in touch with Mallory, so I do want to talk to some folks who have been on the rec committee before, even though I technically served in the rec committee, but that was like 5 years ago, so I feel pretty out of touch about it. But that was still, I think the first step is like talking to some of the partners. We can invite them here.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, yeah. The Trails Committee is healthy and well attended, and they have their act together with their stuff. The Rec Committee, it's a subcommittee of the Rec Committee, and we can't really have a subcommittee of a non-committee when we have no members. So the idea of creating an outdoor rec committee that is one committee, it would potentially attract, I believe, it would potentially attract more people to it, given that the trails folks are mostly interested in what they do.
Yeah.
They could take on some of those other things with a few new members.
Yeah. I think it's wonderful that we've had so many people volunteer lately for committees. We couldn't do it without people doing that. It also makes me a little bit nervous that just tonight we've essentially talked about at least 3 more task force or committees, which is
That's why I brought it up for the select board.
So if we end up doing, I just want to also be realistic about how much we can actually ask volunteers to put in for stuff that the select board really should make some decisions about. So why don't we continue to talk to partners, continue to bring it up and review it, and then I think the most important thing is the Trails Committee to really talk about the logistics of how they're a subcommittee of that committee.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yep.
Great.
One more old business thing. Opie, do you know anything more about the trailhead thing? Is there any more news on when that might come together? When we might start working on it? Because we're gonna get the trees gonna get planted tomorrow, or did you guys do that?
It has not been planted yet. It's happening
Sometime in
Saturday.
July.
Okay. Because the tree's going in tomorrow.
The tree's going in Saturday.
Saturday, sorry.
It's okay.
I was on
It's okay.
Friday already.
It's okay.
Yeah, so Saturday, the tree will get planted up there, and then the downtown partnership has to do our grant, our final, file our final stuff by the end of June, so we have to. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Sherry. Any other new or old business? Motion to adjourn?
Great.
Thanks, everybody.